And all the whores and politicians will look up and shout, "Give us Lucci Gang intro." And I'll whisper, "No." Trigger shark do 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 do. Trigger shark do 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 do. Trigger shark do 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 do. Trigger shark.
Cardi Kaizoku.
It's Arlong time. I'll just let you guys know up front, Arlong in OP03 is not a top tier deck. There are some matchups that he's good in, but there are some that he loses really badly. The reason I put him so low in my tier list is because of this inconsistency in matchups. But that's not to say he isn't fun to play. Let's start off by taking a look at the leader card. Arlong is a dual color green-yellow leader with 5k power and 4 starting life. His leader ability reads, Dawn times 2, when attacking, for 1 Dawn, play 1 cost of 4 or lower character card with trigger from your hand. So he's kinda like Blue Doflamingo, where he can cheat out another body for 3 Dawn, but Arlong is kinda worse. The fact that the character has to come from hand means you'll run out of resources quickly. Doflamingo can pull from the top card of their deck, essentially drawing them a card. This key difference is what makes Arlong so much harder to play past his upfront initial burst of pressure. Honestly, if Shirahoshi was a 4 cost, Arlong would move up in viability significantly. Let's take a look at the rest of the deck. By order of cost, we have 4 OP03 Charlotte Pudding, Big Mom Pirate Searcher for our heavy Big Mom Pirates package. We also have 4 OP03 Sanji, a searchable 2k counter with the niche option of being a source of card draw if we have nothing to play on turn 1 going second. 4 OP03 Nami, East Blue Searcher for some of our tech cards. She also has trigger, so she can be used with Arlong's leader ability or as a free search and body from life. 4 OP01 Izo, 2k counter that can rest a 4 cost or less character, great for defense or offense. 4 OP03 Charlotte Brûlée, it's a blocker with trigger and 1k counter, fulfills many roles in an Arlong deck. 4 OP03 Charlotte Perospero, another Big Mom Pirate Searcher but with trigger and comes with an aggressive stat line. Cheating out a Perospero on turn 2 with your leader ability is one of your strongest openers. 4 OP03 Charlotte Cracker, another attacker with trigger. In fact, he's even stronger than a turn 2 Perospero play. For 1 attached Dawn, Cracker gains plus 1k power and double attack if you're lower life than your opponent. Since Arlong starts out with 4 life, you'll easily meet this requirement pretty often. 4 OP03 Hachan, a searchable 2k counter with trigger in a pinch. 4 OP03 Kuroobi, one of my favorite tech cards in the deck. You can cheat him out with leader ability to tap a priority target to kill, or you can tap a blocker for lethal, or you can even trigger him from life to tap a key attacker in crucial moments. 2 OP03 Chu, trigger character that can KO a rested 4 cost or less character. This is mainly for the Mirror and Zoro matchup. 3 OP03 Django. I found one of the weak points of Arlong is closing out games after depleting your hand of trigger characters to cheat out. Django helps us with that by allowing us to swing twice with our leader. At 10 Dawn, we can attack for 10k twice with Arlong. He even becomes a rest effect too in these situations, and he himself is a 6k body on board after that. 2 OP03 Krieg. This is the card choice I'm most iffy on for now. He can KO 2 rested 4 cost or lower characters on play for 1 discarded card. He gains double attack with 1 attached Dawn as well. He's amazing in the yellow mirror and against aggressive Zoro, but he's a dead card against many other decks. A lot of key cards in the meta are cards like Marco, Blocker Law, Kaku, and Rush Luffy, which Krieg just cannot reach. He's too easily stopped by cheap blockers, and the decks that run the troublesome cards that he can't KO with his effect are usually pretty blocker heavy. The last character we run is 3 OP03 Katakuri. Katakuri is a nice top end for us. We use his on play on one of our own cards like 95% of the time. Putting something like a Nami or Kuroobi back on top of life provides us with not only an additional life, but a lot of utility as well. For events, we run 4 OP01 Punk Gibson. It counters for 4k and can tap another 4 cost or less character. This combos well with Chu and Krieg. But we only run those 2 cards as a 2 of, so it's not a combo you should depend on. Punk Gibson also has a trigger that lets you rest any character. 4 of these, along with 4 Kuroobi triggers, really mess with your opponent's attack strings. Here are some cards to consider. These are cards that will probably end up in your own personal Arlong list in some ratio. As always, my deck breakdowns are more just starting points for you to get the gist of a deck's playstyle so that you can customize it to your local meta and to your own liking. The first card is OP03 Shirahoshi. One of the biggest pain points with the deck is the lack of ways to refill your hand after using your leader ability a couple times. Shirahoshi helps if you manage to trigger her out of life, since she lets you not only go up one card, but also cycles your hand to help you replace useless cards. You'll never hardcast her since she costs a whopping 5 Dawn, but you can place her back on top of life with Katakuri to use her effect a second time if you ever get her at a trigger. What's disappointing is that your leader ability only works on 4 cost or lower triggers, so she's actually out of range. I think Arlong would be a much better deck if she costed 4. Another card to consider is OP03 Charlotte Daifuku. He's another card that can help fix the card draw issue. The only downside is that he doesn't have trigger, so he can't be cheated out. You'll also not want to play him on curve, as that would mean missing a turn using your leader ability, so he's a little clunky to fit in. Another good option is OP01 Trafalgar Law. Law is a big blocker that can help bounce beneficial utility triggers like Kurobi back to hand. We can use him to replace searchers too to fix some of our card draw problems. But he's not searchable by either engine in our deck. The last card I would want to recommend is Starter Deck Charlotte Linlin. She's a big 8k body and her on-play is beneficial for us. If your opponent decides to take 1 life, they just became easier to finish off from your explosive start. If they choose to give you 1 life, you'll most likely land a trigger card from your deck given how many we run. Her being at 7 fits nicely with the 3 Dawn needed for your leader ability as well. For opening hands, you'll want to see Cracker, Perospero, Nami, and Pudding. Cracker and Perospero are your prime leader ability targets. Nami and Pudding can help you find more targets, and they can help thin out your deck as well. They also become bodies that can help attack back into Zoro's boards. I'm going to replace my usual matchup tips sections with the strength and weaknesses section. I feel like this is more useful information. So Arlong's strengths are explosive early game. You get to develop attackers while swinging for 7k. Because of this, Arlong is good against any dual color leader except for probably Law, as you can threaten lethal very quickly since they start at 4 life. You also get additional advantage from triggers in life. Whether the cards in your deck are in your hand or in your life area, a majority of the cards in your deck provide you some advantage. Arlong's weaknesses are lack of card draw. You can play your whole hand out by turn 4, but lack the cards in hand to defend them after. Also lack of removal. It's hard to clear board since we don't have much hard removal. Blockers nullify a lot of our attacks, and searcher heavy decks can counter out of our trades. Susceptibility to Fire Fist. This is one of the biggest weaknesses of the deck. Fire Fist just destroys us. It nullifies a lot of the advantage we get out of our leader ability, and we don't have access to something like a 10 cost Big Bomb to rely on in the late game. So that's my Arlong deck. It's by no means a competitive deck, but it's not unplayable. There's matchups that he's very strong in, but there's also matchups that he just gets completely obliterated in. This variance is the only thing keeping him from seeing more play, as you don't want your tournament results to depend on your matchup RNG. But the good news is that his leader ability is generic enough that he'll only get better as more cards with trigger get added in green and yellow in future sets. So I do think he can become competitive eventually. So invest in him now, and I'll be ready to revisit him when that time comes. Okay, bye.
Car D Kaizoku.